Oregon State Beavers go to Purdue to play a beatable team, end up in a winnable game, but fall short 30-21. Here to talk about it is myself, Aaron Fentress, along with our Oregon State beat writer, Nick Daschel, on the first edition of the Beavers Banter podcast, brought to you by myself and Nick Daschel. Nick, how was your trip, and how are things at Corvallis? You were there. You just went to practice, I assume. How are you doing?
Oh, pretty good. Actually, I was just at Jonathan Smith's Monday press conference.
Okay.
Indiana, the land of no masks. It was
really. Did you wear one though?
I wore one inside. I don't wear them out. I don't try not to wear them outside unless they're mandated. But right. I just know I walked into my hotel and there's a sign up that says wear masks. It's required in here. And so the first 4 people I see aren't wearing masks, including the lady behind the front desk who's. I'm going, oh, great. Here we go.
Fascinating story there. Hope you remain safe though, and you are going to be healthy, because we have to keep you on these podcasts all year to bring the knowledge from the road and from Corvallis. Today on this show, we're going to talk about obviously the loss, but some news, well, semi-news, not really news, no news about the quarterback position coming from Jonathan Smith today. We saw both quarterbacks play in this game. Sam Neuer started, then Chance Nolan came in the third quarter, played a little bit better, actually a lot better than Neuer, but has not been named the starter as of yet. We'll talk about that. And we're going to get into the fourth down situation, that critical fourth down in the fourth quarter. 4th and 2, they go deep. We're going to discuss 1, should they have called that play? 2, should they have just punted? 3, all the different ins and outs of going for it on 4th down in that situation. And then also, quarterback or not, you got to run the football, man. They had, 70-something yards rushing, something like that. You got to do better than that. The entire O-line is back. We're going to talk about that. Then we're going to get into the defense. Looked a little bit better. You wrote about that. They looked a little bit better than they did last year, but maybe still not good enough. Then, how damaging was this loss to the quest to win 6 and become bowl eligible? We'll get into that, and then segue from that into diving into next week's critical game against Hawaii. But first, give the fans out there a taste of what Jonathan Smith said regarding the quarterback situation, Nick.
Okay, Jonathan's stance on the quarterback as it stands right now. There's no practice today. They practice Tuesday and Wednesday. They're going to look at Chance Nolan and Sam Neuer those 2 days, and maybe even Thursday, and he'll make a decision at that point. He didn't specify a day that he would make a decision, but it will be sometime probably Thursday or Friday he'll make a decision. And so they want to take, Jonathan explained that, just based off the Purdue game, he agrees Chance played better, but this is more than just one game. It's a body of work. There was a reason they picked Sam to be the starter because of the way he played in camp. And that was his rationale for what they're doing. Tristan Gebbia is nowhere near ready to get in the mix. He was limping pretty significantly, I thought, Saturday, just walking out to the field. So he's still a ways away. So it's Nolan or Neuer against Hawaii.
So what was your assessment? I mean, clearly statistically it wasn't really close, but did you feel like Neuer showed enough to maybe still be in this race?
Boy, I mean, if you go on what Jonathan says, is we need a guy that can move the ball and score points. I don't know how Neuer stays in the discussion. I mean, he did get pressure. I'll give him that. There was some Purdue's defensive end, George Karlaftis, is about as good as you're going to see in the country, and they put a lot of pressure on from that one side, but Sam did have a lot of time to throw on a number of occasions, and he just flat out threw the ball way over receivers' heads. I mean, and we saw a little of that in camp, and so it wasn't total surprise. He's not, but they didn't move him either. So that was the other thing. I was curious why they didn't run him a little bit more against Purdue. Chance looked like Chance at the end of camp. Chance was hitting guys in stride. He was making plays. He was accurate. He was running the ball. He showed all that Saturday. So, I mean, if it was me, I would probably say Chance is probably the guy, but, I'm not the coach.
Yeah. So Chance was 10 for 16 for 157 yards and 88.4 QBR versus Neuer, who was 10 for 21 for 94 yards and a pick, which was a 7.8 QBR. So statistically, in the eye test from that game, clearly you would say that Nolan's the guy. But, I mean, they went through the entire process of spring and fall camp to end up with Neuer. So in their minds, they're probably thinking, he won the job, but played poorly in the first half. But maybe that doesn't mean he's going to continue to play poorly moving forward.
Well, my gut feeling is they're going to Sam and saying, "Give us a reason to play you this week." That they're going to him the next few days and say, "Give us a reason to play you because you gave us no reason to play you last Saturday." And I'm not saying Jonathan's saying that. I just think that's what the message is that he's got to give him a reason to play him. And right now, I mean, Chance has done what you want out of a starting quarterback. But I mean, who knows? Maybe if Chance is in that situation that Sam is. There was really, I mean, you got to admit there was no pressure on Chance Nolan. Just come in and, how worse could it get? They had 7 drives under Neuer, 5 were punts, 1 was interception, 1 was a touchdown. So, it can't get a whole lot worse than that.
All right, well, we'll see how that plays out. Very interesting storyline moving forward. But probably the most interesting storyline, aside from the quarterback situation at Purdue, was the critical 4th down call in the 4th quarter. So it was a 16-14 game. Purdue's up, about 8 minutes to go. I believe Oregon State was on its own 37. Is that correct?
37, yeah.
37. And they go for it. Not only do they go for it, they end up throwing a home run ball down the middle that is defended by the corner who had good coverage protection, good coverage on the play, even though, there was a play action fake designed to hopefully get the receiver deep. It didn't quite work out. He did have a step, but he wasn't as wide open as I'm sure Oregon State would have hoped. What was your feeling on the decision to go for it right there? And then the play that they called. And of course, they didn't get it. Purdue goes and scores a touchdown, goes up 9, makes it a very difficult situation for Oregon State the rest of the way. But clearly, Jonathan Smith thought the gamble was worth it.
Right. I mean, this has been kind of the number one topic that I've been getting emails and Twitter responses on. Was a lot of people are just tired of Jonathan going for it all the time on 4th down, and I totally disagree with them on that. I just in modern football, I think punting is the analytics show that going for it on 4th down is actually a pretty solid play. Now, what they did may not have been the solid play. Jonathan explained today and said Purdue was stacking the box. We weren't moving the ball. We needed to score some points. We thought we could get Tyjon deep down the middle, and we wanted to go for a big play. And he thought they actually executed pretty well. It just, the Purdue, Corey Trice made a good play. What didn't happen, though, was Luke Musgrave was wide open on that play down the field.
The tight end dragging it.
He was wide open, and Chance either didn't see him or just ignore. I don't know what happened, but that would have been the. But my thinking on this is I understand going for it there. I understand not sending Jack Coletto and trying to pick up it was probably about 1.5 yards. I understand that because Purdue was going to put everybody in the box.
Right.
But why not just try to at least throw something, 10 yards, get a first down, keep the.
Well, they had a guy about 10 yards.
Right.
Open, but the QB didn't see him.
But the whole thought was to go down. That was the thought.
Right.
We're going for it all right here. And, the gamble there is it's 16-14 with 8 minutes to go. If you don't hit it, Purdue's 37 yards away from going in the end zone and probably putting the game away, which is what happened. It took Purdue 6 plays, 37 yards. They scored a touchdown. Right. Got up 9. It was, it was pretty much game over there. So in that situation, I don't know that the gamble was worth it on that one.
Yeah, it's a fascinating dilemma. People talk about it all the time, whether you should go for it. And the bottom line is when you go for it and you get it, everyone's like, see, you should go for it. And when you go for it and you don't get it, everyone says, see, you shouldn't have gone for it. Both sides sort of battling that. What I thought was fascinating was that they went for it on 4th down earlier, down 13-7 with 7:04 in the 3rd quarter. And they ran a fly sweep fake. And then Coletto, who was in at quarterback on that play, tries to basically run to the left side, probably like the 3 or 5 hole, to get a first down. Now, you take that play failing, and it failed because the defensive end you mentioned, I pronounced his name.
George Karlaftis.
Yeah, that guy got inside the tight end, who I believe was Tegan Quittarino.
Yeah, Quitariano.
I'm learning the Beavers, everyone. Forgive me.
Tegan Quitariano.
Quitariano, yeah. So he got beat inside. Now, you could argue that the right tackle should have picked up the defensive end instead of blocking down on the D tackle and then going up to the next level. Regardless, that guy made a great play and stopped it. If you're Oregon State, that play was Steph, and you hadn't been able to run the ball all day. So if you're in a 4th and 2 situation, are you going to trust running it? I mean, it's not very conceivable that Jonathan Smith's saying, oh, yeah, we're going to just power it right in. And that's why having a good running game is so important, because then you have confidence in that run game in those situations. So I kind of like the idea of a play action because you know they're going to stack the box. The problem is you have to execute it. Now, you pointed out, I watched that play over and over. The tight end's absolutely wide open, but he gets pressure. Like there's a guy in his face. He ends up throwing it flat-footed. And that's one of the reasons why he underthrew the pass, because he's got to get it out there deep. A deep post like that, or a seam, whatever you want to call it, he's either got to get it over the head or throw it way to the right so his receiver can go get it, and he just underthrew the guy. So the play call was sound. They just didn't execute it, and it didn't work out. But one other point, if you're Jonathan Smith, you're probably thinking there too, if we don't get it, we've been playing pretty well on defense this entire game. We can hopefully hold them to a field goal. Now you're only down 19-14. As it turned out, they scored a touchdown. So it was a gamble. I like the call itself. They just didn't execute it.
Yeah, I'm with Jonathan on all this, except maybe not go 35 yards downfield. I mean, even if everything works out right, that's still a low percentage play. It's still
100%.
You know, there's a reason why people don't throw the ball 40 yards downfield 20 times a game, because it's just it's hard to execute.
Right, and that's where you want him to see the out. You know, it's basically a deep go with bending it inside and a deep out / corner, and then they had someone in the flat. I mean, that's a passing contest that goes all the way back to Bill Walsh's 49ers. And you want to read the go first, then to the deep out / corner. He never came off the go to see the out corner wide open, like absolutely wide open. That would have been a first down and a big chunk play as well. Unfortunately, he didn't see it. So, you know, what are you going to do? Your defense has to pick you up. They didn't get it done, and the offense couldn't come back. So, you know, if I'm Jonathan Smith, though, when you know you're not going to overwhelm anyone from a talent standpoint yet, except maybe Idaho State, and we'll see what happens with Hawaii, you gotta roll the dice and take some chances. And I think that's what he's thinking. It just didn't work out there.
Oh yeah, and I have to go back and look, but I think they ran that play something similar to that against UCLA in 2019. I think it was a 4th down play, and they got it for a touchdown. It was like a 50-some yard play. So it's not like they haven't done that before, but it's still, I mean, that's asking your defense to do a lot. If you know, they played pretty well on Saturday, and ask them, hey, stand up for us one more time. I mean, that's just tough.
Yep, it definitely backfired, but such is life. All right, so aside from that play, aside from the QB issues, you got to run the football, man. You can't – what, they have 78 yards rushing? Is that what I got down
Yeah,
here?
nobody had more. I think 27 was the high water mark.
78 yards on 25 carries. They got dominated at the line of scrimmage. And this is a team that returns their entire offensive line from last season. They don't have Jamar anymore, but still, if you have a good offensive line, they're creating holes. Any reasonably good back is going to make some plays. But if you know, they could run the football for 185 yards in that game or whatever, which is asking a lot if you only rush for 78. It changes the complexion of the game. It takes the pressure off the quarterbacks who are not lighting it up, and it puts you in a situation where you would have more confidence in running it on 4th down in that situation. You might have gotten the previous 4th and 2 that you failed. So what is going on with this running game? What did Jonathan Smith say, and what can we expect this week from them against Hawaii?
He said it was everybody. Somebody would mess up on a particular play. It wasn't just one guy or two guys. It was always whether the back didn't find the crease, whether tackle missed a block, a tight end, whatever. There was always somebody that that just didn't execute what they were supposed to do, and they couldn't get it done. I think part of the problem is, and I'm just speculating, but they're playing 3 running backs right now. I think you got to get one guy in there and give him the ball and let him see what he can do and see if he can get hot. But we're only talking one game. B.J. Baylor is probably the most experienced back out of this group. Well, he is the most experienced running back. I mean, I honestly think that's what they need to do is try him first and see how he can get, if he can get him going, because in years past, Jonathan's offense has really been predicated on starting with a good running game, and they've been pretty successful over the last 3 years with that. And this offensive line, they return every starter. They've got 80, I think it's 82 career starts between the five of them. They were a good run. They ran the ball pretty well, regardless who was back there. It wasn't just Jamar Jefferson. It was, Artavis Pierce. They had other guys that were picking up yards the last few years. So they know what they're doing. But the other point I'd make is I'm just not going to make that much of a judgment on a first game. I want to see the second, third, fourth game. That's kind of been their MO is they don't play well in the first game, and they watch the video and they get better with each game, after that. So I'm not gonna condemn this offensive line for being terrible yet. They've show me Saturday, show me against SC on the 24th. Then I'll make a judgment on it.
Okay. Defensively, definitely to me not a bad performance. You said actually you thought they did pretty well, especially given what they were like last season. They did give up 313 yards passing to Plummer, but the run defense was pretty sound. 88 yards on 33 carries. Give me your assessment of the defensive play on Saturday.
I thought, yes. I mean, overall, it was better. It looked kind of like the team we saw in camp. They played fast. They got to the ball. They missed a few tackles, but it wasn't like years past where they missed. Where you'd go 4, 5, 6 tackles missed on a play even. They got to the court. They got the one thing they did is they got to the quarterback. They pressured him pretty well, but they didn't finish the play. That they need more than one sack, and they were almost there on several of them. They just didn't finish them. They did have one I thought should have been a sack, and they called I can't remember who got called for a late hit or got called for targeting. Yeah, it was targeting, and I mean it was really kind of, it seemed shaky to me, but I mean that was when they almost got to the guy, but they need to finish. They need to finish on the quarterback. Rajon Wright, he had his hands full with David Bell. That guy is probably the best receiver they're going to see all year. He's an NFL talent for sure. But Rajon Wright, he did pretty well holding up against David Bell. Now Bell got his yards, but he's going to get yards against everybody. I thought he made some plays on the ball, especially early in the game. He looked to me like a guy that's going to be a pretty good player for this defense. Jaden Grant had some good moments. He had the pick there where he took the ball away from the tight end near the goal line to stop a scoring drive. One thing I mentioned to Jonathan even during the press conference was that they had a hard time getting their defensive linemen off the field. It was constantly where they just barely would get them off before the ball was snapped. It was like one time they got nailed, and there's probably 6 or 7 other times where they were, they barely got off. And he said, "Well, we were trying to get, keep them on as long as possible to keep Purdue guessing, and when 300-pound guys are trying to run off the field, sometimes it's hard." But so that guy that'll get better, I'm pretty sure, but.
What cracks me up too is some of the times, sometimes you're making personnel changes for scheme reasons. Sometimes it's just rotation to give guys a breather. And it's always funny when you give a guy a breather, he's got to sprint 40 yards off the field.
Yeah, I don't get that. That one I don't get. I don't get why. Yeah, how much of a break? How much of a break is that to give a guy to run him off and run him back on the next play? I don't know, but yeah, I thought they only had the one takeaway. They need more than that. I talked to several of the players afterwards, and a couple of them looked up at the scoreboard and said, "Oh, we gave up 30 points and 400 yards." But I thought that was misleading. Purdue got a pretty cheap 75 yards there late in the game when Oregon State was kind of gambling a little bit, trying to get the ball back, down by 2, and I mean they'd held them to probably low 300s up to that point, which is one of their, statistically one of their better defensive performances. I think there's only 3 FBS teams they've held to less than what they had Saturday, even the 400 yards. So statistically, it was a pretty good performance.
Right. Also, when you don't run the ball well and your QB plays shaky, but especially when you don't run the ball well, you're not going to have the ball for very long, which means you're going to put your defense on the field. Now, if you're a team that's running, a play every 15, 16, 17 seconds and trying to outpace everybody, you don't worry about time of possession. If you're Oregon State, you care about time of possession. And they lost it by, I'm looking at 8 minutes, 25 minutes and 26 seconds to 34 minutes and 34 seconds. So if you're going to put your defense on the field for 34 minutes, if you're Oregon State, you better back them up with 34 points.
Yeah.
Well, otherwise you're going to be in this situation.
It's not only that. I mean, they a lot of Purdue's scores came on short field, so they put Oregon State's offense put the defense in some holes that were hard to defend, and they actually they held up a couple times on those pretty well. But I mean, you keep giving a good offense only half the field to have to score. It's hard. So
definitely, absolutely.
I'll give them a B out of this game.
The defense.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. So
D,
what will you get?
D for the offense, B for the defense.
All right. Okay, so they're 0-1. Disappointing loss, I think we all agree, because Purdue hasn't exactly been amazing. I think last year they were 2-4. Wait, no, they're 6-2 over the last 2 seasons, 2-4 last season, 4-8 the year before. So this is a 6-12 team. The last 2 seasons, not very good. Went on the road, you lost a close game, so it's still a little disappointing. But the goal, 6 wins. I think everyone in the state, whether you're impartial or not, would like to see Oregon State get back to being a bowl team. In order for them to get the 6 wins, though, they're going to have to win the next 2, right? They got Hawaii and Idaho coming toward Corvallis. And then you look at the Pac-12. The Pac-12 North right now is about as bad as it's probably been after week 1. Oregon barely beat Fresno. Washington lost to Montana. Washington State lost to Utah State, if I'm correct. Cal lost to Nevada. Stanford went and lost at Kansas State. That's not horrible, but they only scored 7 points in that game. Right. So the North is going to have some winnable games. If you're Oregon State, you're probably not petrified about playing Washington State, or Cal after seeing what you saw. You beat Oregon last year, but you got to beat Ohio State and Idaho. What's your assessment right now of their ability to win 6 games after losing at Purdue?
Well, my thought going into the season was I thought they were going to lose at Purdue and still get the 6 wins.
Just kidding.
Well, I just I can only go on the track record. Jonathan's teams haven't played well in openers.
I'm kidding.
And I know they played Ohio State and Oklahoma State, but I mean they haven't just. But the thing is, with Jonathan's teams, they get better with every week, and in October they're going to be a lot better. In November they'll be better. So they have to win. They have to win Saturday against Hawaii. They have to beat Idaho. So they get to 2-1. They're in good shape. My thinking is, they win these 2 games. They go to SC, play competitively. Probably going to lose that game. But then they got Washington State. 2 teams they haven't beaten since you were a boy. But
Whoa, that was a long time ago.
But it's not that long. But they haven't beaten either one in 7 years, and one of them's 9, I think. But I mean, you can't be scared of playing those 2 teams right now. I mean, it's logical to think if this team plays well, it could get to 4-2 by the bye week, and then you go in the bye week and you got then you reassess and see where you're at. I know after that, and then they got Cal and Colorado. I think Cal and Colorado are winnable games. So. I think 6 is doable, but they have to win this week. Right. If you don't win this week, I don't see where you find 6 wins out of the last 10. That's
I agree with you. It would be pretty disappointing with this non-conference schedule to be 1-2 going into the Pac-12. You got to be at least 2-1.
Soul crushing. Yeah.
Okay, so let's look ahead to Hawaii then. Hawaii was 4-4 last year. 10-5 though the previous season, and that included a 31-28 win at home against Oregon State. Yeah, it was in Hawaii. And then they also beat BYU in a bowl game, 38-34. They got a pretty dynamic quarterback, Siobhan Cordero, who had 305 yards, 3 touchdowns, and rushed for 66 yards during a beatdown of Portland State. I think it was, oh my gosh, 46. I had this
49-35.
49-35, but it was 35-7 at halftime. In that game, Hawaii rushed for 268, okay, but that's Portland State. That's an FCS program. A couple weeks ago against against UCLA, which looks, I mean, it's early, but they just smacked around the LSU, so they're looking like a very formidable team in the Pac-12. In that game, Hawaii only rushed for 26 yards. Cordero only passed for 243 with 1 touchdown, 2 picks. UCLA ran all over them for 244 yards. So you want to put Oregon State, I think, right in between what UCLA looks like and what Portland State is. And you have to come away from that feeling like this is a good chance for them to get everything right, offensively, defensively, get the run game going, get whomever the quarterback is who starts the game, get him going against a team that they're an 11-point favorite over. So, Nick, how are you feeling about the Beavers heading against this team, heading into this game against Hawaii, given what they just did to Portland State?
Well, I mean, I like their chances. I mean, they're an 11-point favorite. That's the biggest spread they've had as a favorite. I
was going to ask.
I think it's 8 years. 2013, and the last when they played Colorado in 2013. So it's an unfamiliar role for Oregon State against an FBS team. I'm not counting FCS, but
correct.
With Hawaii, I don't know what to make of the Portland State game because Portland State hadn't played a game in 2 years. I don't know, whether were they not ready to play. It was 28-0 after the first quarter. Did Hawaii just let up in the second half? Did Portland State find itself and start doing something against Hawaii? I don't know. I know that UCLA dominated Hawaii's offense. I mean, they were relentless at the quarterback. They made plays. I mean, Hawaii was going nowhere when I was watching the game. This is a game where I think Oregon State's gotta get right on offense, and I think this defense, while it's good, it's not great, and it's one I think it's not as good as Purdue's. They don't have a dominating player like Purdue has on defense. They've got a linebacker, and I butchered his last name. I think it's Mossau. He led the country last year in solo tackles, for whatever that's worth. And they have a secondary that knows how to create takeaways. They have a couple of quarterbacks that have 6 interceptions each over their career. So they do know how to create takeaways. But I just think this is a game where Oregon State can get right on both sides of the ball, especially on offense.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. And, look, it's not even about just winning this game as far as I'm concerned. If you win this game 33-30, I would just say flat out, you're probably not going to win 6. They need to come close to pummeling this team as far as I'm concerned for me to believe they're going to walk into the Pac-12 at 2-1 and exit with 4 wins. You need to win this game maybe 40-20, somewhere in that range. And that's doable if you can get the running game going, which UCLA did, if you can figure out quarterbacking and use a good running game to set up your play action passing, which is something they're very good at when they got the run game going. And defensively, I wouldn't put Hawaii on Purdue's level. I think the defense is going to have a really good game in this game. I think they're going to handle Cordero. I don't think they're going to be worried too much about Hawaii's run game, and they can get after this team. So I'm not only looking for them to win, I'm looking to see how they win. They need to win in some stylistic fashion to make me believe they're going to win 4 Pac-12 games, even with the North being down, because all those teams that had bad days yesterday, they're going to improve. They're going to get better. None of them, I think, are that bad. It's going to be tough ahead if they can't show that they can take care of Hawaii in relatively easy fashion, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you got to win the game. But
you play to win the game.
You gotta win the game. But yeah, you got to look like you're a Power 5 team playing.
Style points matter in college football, man.
A group of 5, they do. They actually do.
They do.
Not a. But we're not talking about in this case. We're just talking about you got to win games and but sure they should. Just a game they should. I picked it 44-20 in my early pick of the game.
Okay.
Or no, 41-20. I think is what I picked it. 41-20. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Let's see you want to see a good first half at Oregon State where the offense is really churning out the yards, getting the running game going, setting up the passing game, and get into halftime with a a nice comfortable lead.
I agree. One other thing, I noticed they had 8 penalties. That's not a horrendous amount, but I'm sure Jonathan Smith wasn't pleased about that. Has he talked about that?
Say that again.
They had 8 penalties this last game. Purdue had 4. Was Jonathan Smith at all concerned about that number?
He didn't say anything about that. That never really connected with me during the game that was a big problem. I mean, there was a couple of them that were maybe even, I don't even know if they should have been thrown. I mean, 8 and an opener. I mean, they just had the one turnover. So I mean, from that standpoint, it wasn't an incredibly sloppy game. It was just the execution was not good on the offensive side.
Okay, we've exhausted our rundown. Do you have anything else, sir?
No, I pretty much talked out.
You're talked out.
Yeah, pretty much talked out.
30 minutes, that's all you got? Then you're talked out?
I don't have the gas like you do, Aaron.
We're going to have to get you a couple of Red Bulls next time.
No,
I have coffee right before I go on. That's why I'm always amped.
No, that's not my deal is try to keep it as brief as possible.
That's not what we want for the Beavers Banter podcast. Come on.
Well, it's easier to talk it up after a win too. So
this is true.
Maybe we'll bloviate more next one.
Sounds good. All right, that is all for the first Beaver Banter podcast for this season. I am Aaron Fentress along with Nick Daschel, and we will see you next week after what we both believe will be an impressive Oregon State victory over Hawaii.